What's up, X and YouTube? Matt A here. Today we're going to be talking about, that's right, the Bethesda layoffs, or I guess you could say the Microsoft shutting down multiple Bethesda studios, right? So I think it was Arcane, Tango, who else? Roundhouse is going to be, assimilated into ZeniMax Online. And I'm trying to think of the other one that they're shutting down. Oh yeah, the studio that's doing that mobile game, right? The top down shooter, the Doom game, right? They had a top down shooter game. And I played Mighty Doom. It was kind of fun. It was fun for a little while, but it definitely could have been better, right? Of course. So it didn't really take off very well. And a little side note is when you take franchises and Command and Conquer, EA tried that as well. That doesn't really work too well in the mobile field. I feel like with mobile, you kind of have to develop something with its own identity. Anyway, sidetrack. Um, so I want to have a response to Mr. Matty Plays. Now, this isn't a slight against him at all. He's one of my favorite content creators of all time. He's amazing. He does the most thorough reviews, the most thorough work. He has such a good work ethic. So I just want to compliment him in every way possible. And I did find him when they did the Fallout 5 Survivor, 2099 or something 99. They had this website going on way back in like 2014 or 13 or something like that. So I've been watching him. I'm OG since the original, right? I have to say, though, I get his passion for this and I understand what he's saying. But at the same time, I'm going to have a hot take here and disagree. I think Microsoft shutting down or closing these excess studios was actually a good idea. Now, hear me out for a second. Okay. This is unscripted, right? So it's going to be a little bit bouncy. But Bethesda's role is no longer as a publisher, right? Bethesda's main role should be to maximize their IPs and put as many resources as possible and manage their IPs as best as possible, right? They are a studio now. They need to be treated more like an Xbox studio and less like a publisher, less like an umbrella company for other developers, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say you have Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Starfield. Bethesda needs to be focusing on that rather than splitting resources and managing smaller satellite studios, right? They shouldn't be doing that. Now, studios kind of like id Software, that's different because id is well established. They're mature. They don't really need to be micromanaged in any kind of way. They're putting out Doom products. Everyone loves id. Everyone knows Doom. You can't close id. The other studios, I feel like we're distracting. Arcane made really good games. So we know that the talent at Arcane Studios Austin, they're very talented, right? We know that. Everyone knows that. Even people who don't like their games or like Dishonored, they know that that's still a quality game. It runs smooth. It has choices. It has options, even if the gameplay isn't for everyone. We know that. We know that. Yet the sales just didn't match those projects. And just because a project is good, just because it is high quality, doesn't mean it's going to connect with an audience. The Dishonored franchise didn't really connect as well as it should have as an IP, right? Especially if they're going to be a satellite branch of Bethesda. You need an IP that's really going to connect, that's really going to stand out. I hope Dishonored, I hope Dishonored does get a second shot. I hope we do get a Dishonored 3 because, like Maddie says in that part, I do agree that Dishonored could be nurtured. But I don't think that should be Bethesda's focus, right? Bethesda has been mismanaged for a long time, and I mean that logistically. These other studios were distracting them from what they need to focus on. And everyone, okay, including you watching this probably, everyone wants Fallout, everyone wants Elder Scrolls, And people like me who did enjoy Starfield realize that we want Starfield. We don't want to wait. Look, let's be honest here, okay? None of us want to wait to 2032 for Fallout 5. That's absolutely insane. It's completely ridiculous. Okay, Bethesda has been operating and doing whatever they want. They've been mismanaged completely. They pretend that they're an indie studio. They act like an indie studio. They manage themselves like an indie studio, and yet they're trying to make games that are above their weight. And what I mean by that is their studio size is so small compared to the industry standard, we can't get quality stuff out of the gate. We couldn't get all of these Starfield updates should have been right out of the gate. Why didn't we get that? Bethesda is not lazy, okay? Bethesda is not incompetent. It's not Todd's fault. It's not anyone's particular fault. They're all skilled developers. They're all really talented. The writing is really good. Everything there to make $1 billion franchise. They have done it. That is incredible. That is a miracle. The problem is they do need oversight. They do need a manager. Microsoft needs to come in and crack the whip. They need to increase their studio size. And that, I will say, is a good point. That I will say is a good point that, I think Maddie didn't really make in that video, but I think it's a good point to note that Microsoft, the part where they screwed up was not putting these teams into other Bethesda projects. So they did with Roundhouse Games. They did put them with ZeniMax. All of the other studios should have been put on Bethesda projects. They should have been put on Fallout updates, Starfield updates. They should have been incorporated into those teams, or at least their jobs should have been reallocated. Because let's face it, Bethesda needs more developers, not less. They need more. And back to Arcane for a second, Redfall is their fault. It is their fault. It doesn't matter if they wanted to make that game or not. If you are tasked with making a game as a studio, even if you don't like it, you do the best job you can, right? That's a philosophy that some people have. You could be a software engineer, you get fired, have to work as a janitor. You should put just as much effort into being a janitor as you did a software engineer. That's just the integrity of your brand, which is yourself, your studio. They put their entire studio at jeopardy, and people left and things like that because they didn't like what they were being told to do. Now, I get it. You shouldn't be forced to do projects you don't want to do, but look at the result. You put out Redfall. It's a complete disaster. Okay. That's the result here. Redfall is not Microsoft's fault. That was being done before Microsoft bought Bethesda. Also, we'll address HiFi Rush. That is also a great little, IP, but that's not enough. This is Bethesda Game Studios, man. This is Bethesda Game. These are $1 billion IPs. You can't just have a little indie hit like HiFi Rush and expect, let's keep this under the Bethesda umbrella. No, I mean they didn't fit with the identity. It didn't fit with Bethesda at all. Now Microsoft could have, like I said, converted it into a new studio, diverted those assets into something else without actually closing it. They could have done something more strategic than just letting everybody go or closing that studio. So I agree with that part, but I do agree that Microsoft made the initial right decision at getting rid of the studio from Bethesda's portfolio. None of that stuff belongs with Bethesda. Respectfully, none of that stuff belongs there. So that's my take on it. I'm gonna put a full video out on my recommendations for Bethesda and Microsoft going forward. If anyone happens to watch that, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm just gonna get my thoughts out there because everyone likes to have a discussion, likes having their thoughts out there. Again, no hate against Maddie. I just disagree. I think Microsoft made the right decision at cutting these excess studios off Bethesda. I think Bethesda lost focus. I think they need a bigger studio. I think they need more people on Elder Scrolls Fallout and especially Starfield. We're talking about $1 billion franchises that have been mismanaged completely over and over again. right? And just look at the Fallout 4 update. Perfect example. The Fallout 4 update. Perfect example, Maddie. Look at the Fallout 4 update, right? I mean, we're sitting here, we got a studio and doing updates for Redfall for a dead game, trying to make it work. We got a top-down mobile game that's not generating enough revenue, on the apps. We got, HiFi Rush. It's going to go to Switch and all that stuff. And meanwhile, we have one of the biggest games of all time, one of the best-selling games of all time, millions and millions and millions and millions of copies, blowing up with the TV show. And the next gen update is a complete failure. So that's the perspective that I'm looking at it from. You got all these little satellite companies satellite studios doing all this little stuff, taking away, distracting Bethesda with all of these things. All of those developers should have been on Fallout 4. The Fallout 4 update you should have had hundreds of people working on the damn thing. They have 250 people working on Starfield. You can't manage a studio like that. Rockstar has like 4,000 people. That's Rockstar has like 4,000 developers. And let's be honest, Rockstar, their IP portfolio isn't even as large as Bethesda's. So you tell me what kind of clown world we're living in where we have 250 people working on $1 billion franchise. All the while, they're trying to manage satellite studios under their umbrella, even though they're not really technically really a publisher anymore because, they're under Microsoft's umbrella. I have to say, I agree with Microsoft on this. If I'm on the board of directors, this is what I would like to see happen. It's unfortunate. I feel bad for the people who lost their jobs. Like I said, Microsoft should have definitely allocated those people to other roles, other positions. And I did agree with Maddie on that too, that we have to look at future development and job security. Honestly, like other people, I was hoping Microsoft would be a saving grace for Bethesda. I was hoping Microsoft would be a saving grace for Blizzard. And I was hoping that they would forcefully manage these IPs and these studios better, rather than just leaving them there to flounder in the wind. But I do think that this is a step in the right direction. I'm going to play a few clips from Maddie's video and give just a direct response on those things. Let's see what he has to say because, like I said, he is a GOAT. He is one of the OG Bethesda content creators. Now he does a lot of Xbox and other things, but I like his stuff.
As a New York Mets fan, I know what it's like to live season after season with immense disappointment in your team. But at a certain point, you can't really blame the team anymore. You have to look at management as you watch them spin their wheels, continue to fail over and over.
See, I agree. He just said the key word here, management failed. So why is Bethesda in charge of managing the satellite studios if they failed? Management clearly failed. That's why I say that I agree but disagree. The studios needed to be closed. They couldn't be managed by Bethesda.
And convincing themselves that something's going to change with them in charge. Sounds familiar, right? Yep, that's Xbox. The same team that just shut down 4 studios and announced a brand new controller alongside it.
That I will agree with him on that. That's pretty stupid of them. They should have never. They should have understood the optics. Like, hey, this is going to be big news. We're shutting down Bethesda Studios. Why are we announcing a controller?
It's unbelievable at a certain point.
Yeah.
This is a company that already had a rough start to the year with thousands of layoffs, but they continue in this bottomless pit to find new lows that even at their worst points, I couldn't even imagine. Just when you think, all right, they cleaned out house at the top of the year, that was awful, but hopefully this sets them up for the future. They shut down not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 studios. It reminds me of an interesting article.
Yeah, but like, what were those studios doing? Like I was saying before, they weren't developing IPs or putting out projects of higher quality that was helping Bethesda at all, aside from HiFi Rush. Redfall seriously hurt the entire reputation and the brand equity of Bethesda. Redfall hurt Starfield's launch. So keep that in mind.
From gamesindustry.biz, which was talking about how 2023 was the year of layoffs. But 2024, that's the year of studio closures, said some anonymous executives. Gee, I wonder who warned them of that. Tango Gameworks, gone. Arcane Austin, gone.
Right.
Roundhouse Studios, gone. Alpha
Right.
Dog Games, gone. All 4 of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, why are we upset that a mobile developer with microtransactions is gone, right? I don't understand when we became upset that the studio was gone. So, in my opinion, is that just part of the fake outrage? You know, we're upset that, you know, a mobile dev got closed. What were they really doing, Maddie? They weren't really doing much of anything for Bethesda.
Have been shut down via an email from Matt Booty. Naturally, I'm pissed off. I think that goes without saying.
I mean, I can understand. And also, too, for the email thing, I mean, if you have thousands of employees, there's no other way to get through but send out an email memo. You know, you can't conference call every single person, right? You have to send out an email. Also, we know Arcane Studios, they did that to themselves with Redfall. Redfall hurt Bethesda.
Naturally, I'm pissed off. I think that goes without saying. But more than anything, it's the immense disappointment I'm experiencing that is so powerful, it's almost unbearable. How do we get here? And more importantly, how do execs who continue to fail at their job continue to make people who make the things they want them to make pay the price? I'm talking about not just Xbox.
That's the thing, Maddie. Microsoft execs didn't fail Bethesda. Bethesda failed Bethesda Studios because, like I said, they were spread too thin, didn't have enough people, and they couldn't manage these satellite studios. You're misdirecting your anger here, I think, a little bit. Bethesda are the ones who manage these things, right? They put these projects out, or I guess you could say ZeniMax. You if you want to, you could pin it on ZeniMax wanting live service stuff and wanting mobile stuff. You could technically, I guess, pin it on ZeniMax. If that's the case, then Bethesda should have pushed ZeniMax to put it under another umbrella and create a new management team. They could have refused to manage these studios, but the execs at Microsoft didn't manage these IPs into the ground. They didn't even manage these studios until recently. That's why I think they are doing the right thing now by getting involved. They should have got involved from day one and cleaned all this up.
To find new gone. Roundhouse Studios, gone. Alpha Dog Game.
Well, to be fair, Roundhouse is being, assimilated into other teams where they're going to be put to good use because ESO, and Maddie even likes ESO, they does really well. It's really good for Elder Scrolls, and it continues to build lore on what people actually want to play, right?
Gone. All 4 of these teams have been shut down via an email. Awful decisions, and the people who make the things are paying the price I laid out for them.
Now, I agree with that, though. He is right. The mismanagement is costing people jobs. It is hurting the industry. I feel bad for the people who were let go, and hopefully their severance packages were really good. That's all I have to say on that. I do agree with that
all
part.
along. And I'm not going to advocate for more studio shutdowns, but simply by logic alone, we need to take an honest look at this, okay? We have here Tango Gameworks, who made a phenomenal game that, according to Xbox executives, sold well enough and earned itself a port to other platforms to sell more copies.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's good and all. That's good and all, but that little IP isn't enough to carry a studio, Maddie. I mean, you could give that IP to anyone, right? They created the IP, they did their job, they got paid for it. Hopefully they got a bonus. Hopefully they get a good severance package. But at the end of the day, this one little IP isn't going to carry Tango Gameworks, right? This HiFi Rush is great. I know Maddie loves it, but it's not that popular. It's kind of a niche product. It's not going to carry an entire studio. It's just not going to carry an entire studio.
And eventually, I imagine, will be announced to be sold on Nintendo Switch. They get shut down. Okay, but then you have 343 with the Halo license who gets to fuck around for not 1, not 2, but 3 times in a row.
See, I agree. I agree with him here about 343, but I don't see how bringing that into the conversation is relevant to the mismanagement or of Bethesda Satellite Studios. I don't see how that's relevant. 343, is also not to blame. I think Microsoft is to blame on that direction. They didn't do a battle royale, right? Everyone wanted a battle royale. They didn't do anything innovative with the gameplay. They didn't make it a looter shooter or a live service. And unfortunately, as much as people would hate it, if they did that, it probably would be a little bit more popular right now. It just doesn't have any replayability. It has the arena shooter aspect, and it has the seasons, which are good, and the graphics are good. The gameplay is good, but there's no innovation. There's nothing that makes you like want to play Halo. And maybe it's just a broader spectrum of that, the FPS genre is dead. Like the true FPS, GoldenEye, Doom's still going good though. But like things like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, we still don't have a Perfect Dark. We don't have like a traditional FPS, single player FPS with an arena shooter multiplayer on the side, because Battle Royale has just taken over that entire genre. And we see that, with Apex Legends and, Call of Duty and Fortnite just dominate that entire FPS field, So again, maybe that's Microsoft's fault and not 343. I don't know that we would close 343 because their implementation, I guess what I'm trying to say is they implemented the game very well. This isn't comparable to Redfall, right? Because Redfall was implemented very poorly. Halo was implemented poorly logistically, but the game itself functioned very, very well and looked very good and was very smooth from my point of view, right? I played it at launch. It was very fun, functional. It was a totally different ball game than Redfall in quality. Way better quality than Redfall, in my opinion, right? Just quality-wise.
So this article that announced this information was originally at IGN. We're going to go through it, and I'm going to talk bit by bit on the impact of all these studios being lost. It's not just about the games, but the message that Xbox is sending to its other developers at this point in time. So,
I honestly think that's a good message. It's a message that says, if you don't micromanage or manage your studio better, we're going to have to come in and fix things for you. We're going to have to come in and make cuts. You need to generate results at your job, man. I mean, at any job, even with your job, Maddie, right? Like you have to generate, buzz. People have to like you. You have to put out really good content. If you're not, then you're going to suffer that business loss. So I think they should know that studios shouldn't just have too much of a leash to where they just do whatever they want and mismanage everything and put out titles like Redfall and hey, it's going to be fine because Microsoft has trillions of dollars, right? Your parents are rich, so you could go out and fail in business. It's fine to just fail because you have rich parents. I don't think that it should work like that. I think they should have consequences. Maybe this was too harsh though. I'll give you that, but you should still have some kind of consequences, right? In my opinion, I was going to say, not trying to be hateful or, like coming in a negative way. This is just my opinion.
Let's get to reading. IGN writes, Microsoft has closed a number of Bethesda studios, including Redfall maker Arcane Austin, HiFi Rush, and the Evil Within developer Tango Gameworks. And
I mean, again, in Mighty Doom, the Evil Within, none of that did
more
well.
In devastating cuts. My games, playoffs, and the immediate on its own. It's about the future of the industry. We are in such a now on its own. It's about the future of the industry. We are in such a now state of mind.
Now, see that I agree with him on that. We do need to foster, good talent. We do need job security. We can't just treat people poorly in the industry. So I do agree. I think Microsoft should have, like I said, integrated all of the studios into some Bethesda project or another. They shouldn't have just cut those studios out. They should have integrated them like they did with Roundhouse, right? So they did it with Roundhouse. I think they should have done it with more. The optics would look a lot better too, right?
No one is considering the preservation, not just of software, which I've talked about extensively over on Retro Rebound. No one's considering the preservation of talent. Maintaining the people who work here now who can inspire and invite others to get involved in what could be a fantastic industry. That is the problem. Let's continue reading.
See, I agree with him there, but you don't need failing studios or poor IPs to do that and to invest in talent, right? We don't need that to invest in talent. You could do it in other ways, of course.
On Redfall, the disastrous vampire co-op game will now not receive promised updates, including an offline mode and new character DLC, as Microsoft has ended all development on the game. Microsoft said Redfall will remain online to play, and it will provide a make-good offer for those who bought the Hero DLC. Arcane Leon, which is working on Marvel's Blade, survives the cull, as does Bethesda Game Studios, Fallout, Elder Scrolls Starfield, and Machine Games, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Well, yeah, because Arcane Leon, they're working on a Marvel IP. You can't, you have to see that through.
Doom developer id Software making them your own. Arcane Leon will continue their focus on immersive experience. Arcane Leon sounded off in a Twitter thread.
Maybe this is Microsoft's fault for not having more communication with their entire network of studios. Microsoft, maybe Maddie's right. Maybe the guy from Leon is right. Maybe Microsoft should have sent a representative or someone of note to every single studio and kind of explained to them what was going on rather than just spring this up all of a sudden. So maybe he's right about that part. Maybe this isn't unprofessional. Let me know what you think. Unprofessional, semi-unprofessional, or did Microsoft actually screw up by not sending, a representative to explain these closures in person, right? Rather than doing the mass memo email.
Reading this, friendly reminder that video games are an entertainment/cultural industry, and your business as a corporation is to take care of your artists/entertainers and help them create value for you. While also calling it a gut stab, saying Leon is safe, but that you should hear the stories of these developers from all of the layoffs. Tango Gameworks also confirmed their closure, saying today it was announced that Tango Gameworks will close. Thank you to everyone that explored the worlds we created. HiFi Rush, along with Tango's previous titles, will remain available and playable everywhere they are today. Aaron Greenberg, who is a marketing director at Xbox, said, HiFi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and the goal here is. Now, obviously, this isn't a laughing matter, but you want to know what's really funny about this? According to Xbox executives, when buddy Jez Corden posted, what exactly determines success?
If you're an executive, you're in the corporate space. First of all, they don't tell you everything. And, second of all, you can't be negative about stuff. What is he going to say in the interview? Oh, yeah, HiFi Rush is great. We just don't see it having the legs to carry the studio long term. So we might shut it down in 4 months. They're not going to say that. I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. No one's going to say that in business. It doesn't matter what business it is or who it is. A marketing person isn't going to say that. So I'm not too surprised about this bit.
That's for an Xbox game these days. HiFi Rush, as far as I know, had no physical version, no marketing, no multiplayer. If Xbox is pressuring ZeniMax to deliver sales of a game, maybe it shouldn't put so much emphasis on Xbox Game Pass. What's the goal here? To which Aaron Greenberg, who is a marketing director at Xbox, said, HiFi Rush was a breakout hit for us and our players in all key measurements and expectations. We couldn't be happier with what the team at Tango Gameworks delivered with this surprise release.
I'll go ahead and give it a like
fucking
too,
shit, dude.
I do like
Seriously?
It's way more thought out than
That's
mine.
your breakout hit. Here's the thing, man. Okay. This is the Diamond Studio that's getting the worst of it, right? I think people will rationalize what's going on with Arcane Austin. I got my own bars for that. But I want to talk about Tango Gameworks. The main thought to me when I saw this news is Xbox will deeply regret this one.
On this, I agree with them. Microsoft might come to regret this because there are some IPs that are being shut down that have the potential to grow. Although they still own these IPs are going to go to other studios. The Evil Within can have a sequel, can have another game with another studio. Dishonored could have another game with another studio. That doesn't necessarily mean that we aren't going to get any more of these games. That just means they aren't going to be with these studios. I wouldn't count it out that they're just going to shelve all of these IPs. I would say that it's going to be in the bank. They could pull out these IPs whenever they feel like they want to pull out an IP, right? They might just do that. So
we are hoping to acquire Japanese studios. Bro, you shut down your only Japanese studio that you inherited. And by the way, they delivered your best game of 2023. What the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? Make it make sense, dude. It's unbelievable, the mismanagement here. This is a company that, I get it, because what it's looking like here is we're focusing on Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Starfield, and we're focusing on big IP like Blade, like...
Exactly, man. And this is what everybody wants. Truly, this is what fans actually want. People are going to side with these studios, and people are going to hate on this, and people are going to hate on Microsoft. But at the end of the day, they are going to vote with their wallets. And the majority of the people who have a problem with these closures were never going to buy these games, and they were always going to spend money on Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Indiana Jones, and Blade. I mean, come on. So it's a feel-good thing to say, but money-wise, people are going to support the main IPs that can carry the studio, the IPs that Bethesda should be focusing on.
Doom, like Indiana Jones, like the big blockbusters, The Outer Worlds 2. These are the big focuses for Xbox
The Outer Worlds 2.
But you need studios that make your...
That's a good point. The Outer Worlds 2, really waiting for that. Obsidian needs to be their Rockstar studio. Tango Gameworks, not so much. Obsidian, yes. The Outer Worlds 2, it's going to be great. I hope they don't let us down with Avowed. I've never been let down by Obsidian game. I don't expect Avowed to let me down either. But that's what I'm talking about. That is what Microsoft needs, right? And we're always talking about we want them to be competitive with PlayStation. How is HiFi Rush going to be competitive with PlayStation if they're putting out God of War, Monster Hunter, and all of these other things? You see what I'm saying? Like, they need the competition. If you want them to actually compete with Sony, with PlayStation, with these big IPs, then we need big IPs and we need studios that are going to put out these kind of things, right? So Xbox needs these.
Prestige pieces, you're in the cuts, you're diamonds in the rough, because they are going to create new fans. To me, the message here is like they're done trying in Japan. I don't see any level of rationale where you go, hey, we're still trying to crack through in Japan, and you shut down your only studio that is in Japan. That is
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, Microsoft has the resources. Tango Gameworks, they're obviously very, very competent. They, like I said, they could have been integrated to another team. They could have been bolstered. They could have been making projects that are more Japanese oriented for the Japanese market. They could have done any of that stuff with it, but I also think that they made the right call by taking that away from Bethesda. What business does Bethesda have in operating a satellite company or managing a satellite studio, Japanese studio? That doesn't make any sense for Bethesda, Maddie. I mean,
very good. And that had a very bright future and just delivered a hit that people loved. And by the way, by merit of your own decision making, you may have set the game up for failure. Instead of shadow dropping it, you could have even put it in the Game Awards the year before, where everyone was losing their mind because they had nothing. In a year that was barren, Xbox had nothing in 2022. You could have actually set this game up for a better fate, potentially. Again, this is what I'm talking about with the failing upward in this industry.
He's right about that. Microsoft has been completely dropping the ball on these IPs. I think that's one of the things they're trying to correct. But just because Microsoft failed in 2022 doesn't mean that HiFi Rush and Tango Gameworks needs to stay around just because Microsoft screwed up in 2022 and didn't put out anything or didn't do what they should have done, right? Two wrongs don't make a right, in other words. Or two wrong decisions don't equal out a good decision is what I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but you get it.
I talked about it with writing, especially when I talk about Gotham Knights, and here with management, Xbox, Bungie, some of the best examples. Just watch and learn. I want to talk about Arcane Austin now, because this is a really interesting one in that I see most people kind of shrugging their shoulders and going, yeah, Redfall was a pretty disastrous launch, like lowest rated Xbox game. And then you see Matt Booty say something like, right now we're not thinking about closing out Arcane Austin, only for not even a year later to do that. But I digress. We have this situation here where Arcane Austin is kind of getting the shoulder shrug. Like, yeah, they delivered a bad game, and that's what happens. I look at this as one of the most unfortunate losses in this. Not because I'm one of those Redfall defenders. Many people know I don't like the game at all. However, this was a game that was forged during an era at Bethesda that was very against their core identity. They make single-player games, and they were...
Here's the key thing, what he just said. This is the key thing. at Bethesda. Bethesda did that. Bethesda put Redfall in motion. Bethesda mismanaged that. So how is keeping that studio under Bethesda management going to do any good for Bethesda? Bethesda should not be managing these satellite studios. It did no good for Arcane, and they didn't really catch audiences with their games. And it's not just Redfall. It was, Dishonored just didn't connect outside of the cult following that they have, even though those games were highly polished. I will say I do agree that they should have integrated that studio into doing other projects, or bolstered it and gave it what it needed to develop and grow. But ultimately, if you're not going to develop it and you're not going to put it under its own umbrella, or under different management outside of Bethesda, if you're not going to keep it with Bethesda, that is a good idea. What you do after that good idea could also be a bad idea, but it is a good idea to remove that from Bethesda's portfolio. Bethesda has no business trying to manage Arcane when they put out something like Redfall. So,
forcing their single-player studios to make live service games. So you got Fallout 76, you got Wolfenstein Youngblood, and you got Redfall. Redfall being the last of that entire era. After delivering a game like Prey, if we are to believe the reports of Jason Schreier, 75% of the original talent from that game had fled the studio because of Redfall. So much of the original talent that was there with Arcane Austin was not the same ones who made Prey.
Again, Bethesda caused that exodus. So how is leaving the studio open with Bethesda going to solve that problem? Bethesda already did that, already put that nail in the coffin. Bethesda already screwed that up. All the more reason why Bethesda doesn't need to have these satellite studios.
Still, the reason left Arcane Austin is because they went against their DNA. And if anyone deserved a second chance, just like Bethesda Game Studios, just like what we got with Machine Games, where now they're making Indiana Jones, Arcane Austin deserved the same fate. Because Xbox has gone on record of admitting that they didn't pay close enough attention to what was going on with Arcane Austin.
Right, exactly. Bethesda screwed up and Microsoft screwed up by not paying attention. Now Microsoft is paying attention and they're finally getting involved like they should and cutting it, right?
And while I don't know unless you threw the miss has reprioritization of titles and resource franchises, and IGN is below. Today, I'm sharing changes we are making to our Microsoft Xbox, because all that has happened here has flown in the face of prior comments. Let's read this stupid ass email here.
See, now this is the email that, this is the email that went out, and I have to say, I agree with the email. Honestly, I agree with the email.
Where they write, in an email to staff sent by Matt Booty, head of Xbox Game Studios, Microsoft blamed the cuts on a reprioritization of titles and resources. The email, verified by IGN, is below.
This
Today,
makes
I'm
sense.
sharing changes we are making to our Bethesda and ZeniMax teams. These changes are grounded in prioritizing high-impact titles and further investing in Bethesda's portfolio of blockbuster games and beloved worlds, which you have nurtured over many decades. To double down on these franchises and invest to build new ones requires us to look across the business to identify the opportunities that are best positioned for success. This reprioritization of titles and resources means a few teams will be realigned to...
I'll just pause right here and let you guys read it for a second, but I do agree. I do agree with this, right? I agree. This is open and honest. This is clearly why they did it. They didn't just fire people or close studios because it was fun, right? They did it because they truly believe this, and I agree with their decision. I'm just going to say it's a hot take. I know, no disrespect to Maddie or anyone else. This is just my opinion. That's it. I am not that important, right? I'm not that important. I'm just a guy who plays Bethesda games and plays games, and I see the writing on the wall that I want Bethesda to focus on Bethesda. I want a bigger Bethesda studio, and I want more resources for Bethesda. I don't want them being distracted by these titles that aren't connecting with audiences like their main games are. And I want Xbox to focus on studios like Obsidian and In Exile, so that we have these grand open world RPGs and we have really good live service games. Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online are some of the best continual live service games on the market. Those games are really, really good. Fallout 76 hopefully could migrate to the Starfield engine because the graphics are really bad, but I've been playing hundreds of hours of that game. It is so fun. It's so Fallout. Graphics be damned, right? So that's it for the video. That's my response to Mr. Matty. That's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the Xbox Studio closures. I know a lot of you aren't going to agree. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be, an a-hole about it. I'm just trying to give my objective opinion, and I'm open to changing it. I'm not like rock solid in this, right? I can be persuaded, or if you want to debate, I could debate that and, see things from other perspectives. There's some things I agree on, some things I don't. Bottom line is, I don't think Bethesda should have been managing or having these satellite studios when they can't even get their own stuff right, like the Fallout 4 Next Gen update. Terrible update. Why are you worried about a studio in Japan? Why are you trying to make Redfall when you know you can't even update a $1 billion franchise? Thanks for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, or probably a thumbs down because a lot of people are not going to like this. But thanks for watching.